Hi guys. I hope the connection is good because I am in a brand new location. It looks like the connection is good, so hopefully it continues to stay that way. Let me pull you guys in nice and close. So currently I am traveling, as you can probably tell. Um, I'm traveling because of a bit of a family emergency. And so again, I'm doing a live stream kind of in lieu of a podcast episode. However, I will be filming podcast episodes soon because I have finally regained some semblance of motivation to return to podcast episoding. So, um, yes. Let's see. Currently, I'm very sleepy because I woke up at 2. I don't know if you can tell how sleepy I am, but I am sleepy. However, I don't really want to do much, if I'm being honest with you guys. I don't want to go to sleep, and I don't want to not go to sleep, because I'm sleepy. So I thought, well, why don't we do a live stream and discuss things together? And I really do hope, that all of this is going well. Let me actually double check that this is going well. I'm gonna turn my volume down so that I can see. Okay, it's functioning how it should, so that is excellent. Okie dokie. So hello. Let's talk some more. Okay, you guys, I'm gonna be a little bit slow because again, like I said, I am sleepy. So, forgive me for any likes, anything like that. But I just wanted to get on here and quickly add on to the previous discussion that I was having on the previous live stream. You don't need to watch the live stream to understand what I'm talking about right now. I mean, if you want to, go ahead, but it's not necessary for you to understand what I'm going to be saying, if that makes sense. So I just wanted to add that I forgot that Jason dies, and I forgot to include that in the book review that I was making about the Blood of Olympus. So yeah, let's discuss, okay? Because at the time of making that live stream, I only remembered that him and Piper broke up. Okay? I can't tell if there's a gap in the door, which is anyway, I will verify. I don't think it's a gap because I feel like I would have noticed it, but whatever. I will verify later. Okay. I'm too scatterminded right now to be worrying about gaps in doors. But anyway, when I did the first live stream, I was only thinking, and I was only remembering, and as I was reading the book as well, I was only remembering that Jason and Piper broke up because I remembered, no, I read the first Trials of Apollo, you guys. Fear not, I will be making a video essay about the books, okay? More specifically, Rick Riordan himself, okay? But, okay, look, I shouldn't say that because I still owe you guys a video essay, which, like I said, I am now currently working on again, right? Because I have regained motivation to be creative. But anyway, I really want to, there's some weird sparkly stuff on my laptop. Um, I really want to make a video essay about the Percy Jackson series and Rick Riordan as an author. Also, hello, because it just it gets to a point, right? Like the first series, when it was a little bit bigoted, I could be like, okay, well, this was from 2005, maybe even earlier, probably like early 2000s to late 2000s, right? When it was done publishing. So I felt more comfortable excusing that, but I also felt more comfortable excusing that because, like I said in the previous live stream, it did have moments where it wasn't so bigoted. Does that make sense? So it did have moments where I was like, okay, there is bigotry in these books. However, you can see the growth of Rick Riordan as he goes on, as he continues to write the series. Notably, the improvement between book one, Aphrodite Cabin, and Aphrodite herself, versus the Lost Hero Aphrodite, and versus the Last Olympian Aphrodite Cabin, night and day. Okay, the beginning of Aphrodite and the Aphrodite Cabin, super misogynistic. And then in The Last Olympian, we got a very competent Aphrodite Cabin, or at least competent Aphrodite Cabin leader, which, of course, is backtracked in The Lost Hero when we have a new Aphrodite Cabin leader who is so awful, like genuinely so bad. But again, I'm able to kind of like look past that as I'm reading the book because Aphrodite herself is so amazing, like so amazingly written, to where it feels almost like less like Rick Riordan doesn't know how to write women and more like Rick Riordan is writing complex women, right? That's in The Lost Hero. Okay, and again, need to remind you, The Lightning Thief, misogynistic, okay? Most definitely. The only like good female character was Percy's mom, and even she suffered from tropes such as like dying for the male hero, right? Which is a misogynistic trope, of course, but not as, as misogynistic as some of his other works. Then it all changes after The Lost Hero. Because The Lost Hero, and I should really specify, the Titan's Curse, towards the end of the Titan's Curse, starts this nonsensical argument between our book heroes and Hera. Like, some of you guys might argue, well, I've read the mythologies and I know that Hera is this and this and this, and you guys will call her a bunch of different names, and that's your prerogative, okay? I will not, I refuse to agree with you. But in universe, in the Percy Jackson universe, it is nonsensical, okay? I'm talking about Hera as a character, not as IRL goddess, okay? Not as the goddess that you and I might know her as, not as the goddess that you and I know from the mythologies that you and I can read right now. I'm not talking about that Hera. I'm talking about Hera specifically in the Percy Jackson universe. That Hera, the hate that she gets is nonsensical because it starts with the Titan's Curse and it makes no fucking sense. Okay? Really, if you really want to get to the crux of like the beginning of the Hera hate, you would start with Talia's story, the introduction of Talia's story. And again, I mentioned this in my last live stream. I refuse to call Talia Thalia. I will not do it, because that's not how you pronounce your name, okay? So don't come at me. If you're a Percy Jackson fan, don't come at me. I refuse to pronounce Talia as Thalia, because that makes no sense to me. Just as much as the Hera hate makes no sense to me. But anyway, if you really want to get to like the beginning of the Hera hate, you will start with Talia's story, right? Because that is when Zeus saved Talia by striking her and turning her into a pine tree as she was on the brink of death. However, when Talia's story is first introduced, we see it more as Zeus himself made that decision. He didn't have anybody whispering in his ear or pressuring him or anything like that. He himself made his own decision. He was like, I see that my daughter needs help. I see that she's being surrounded by cyclopes. I'm going to turn her into a pine tree, and the pine tree is going to serve as this magical barrier for Camp Half-Blood. Himself. Okay, that is how it is introduced in the books. When Talia's story is introduced, that is how it is introduced in the books. Because the show does something different. It's an adaptation. Okay? But anyway, later on, however, it is a little bit rectified to where the characters are saying, well, Zeus only did that because Hera hates Zeus's children. So she influenced Zeus to turn her into a pine tree, much like how the show says, right? However, at the beginning, I want to stress, at the beginning, when Talia's story is introduced, it is implied that Zeus made the decision on his own, and you even have Percy being like, wow, Zeus is crazy, right? And, Chiron and Grover are like, hey, don't talk about him like that. And then, the thunder rumbles in the background. I've read The Lightning Thief so many fucking times, you guys. But anyway, that is how it's first introduced. And then, in the Titan's Curse, that is when I can pinpoint, okay, this is where this nonsensical Hera hate train started. And again, I'm using nonsensical in universe, okay? In the Percy Jackson universe, it is nonsensical. And I'll tell you why. Because it starts with Talia running into Mount Olympus. Wait. No, it doesn't. It starts in the Battle of the Labyrinth. Because that scene that I'm thinking about happens in The Last Olympian. So, okay. When I can pinpoint the Hera hate starting is the Battle of the Labyrinth. Okay? And that is when Annabeth and Percy are in the labyrinth along with Grover and Tyson, and they run into Janus. I think is how you pronounce the god's name. It's the two-faced god. And, the god is like, well, you can either go this way or you can either go this way. And Percy's like, are you going to tell us which way to go? And the god is like, you can either go this way or you can either go this way, right? And so then Hera magically appears out of nowhere and is like, hey, stop messing with these demigods and get out of my face. And so Janus leaves, and Hera sets up a banquet, cleans everyone up, gives them a nice treatment. She is very nice in the scene, okay? The only thing that she does wrong is that she gives them a new quest. She's like, hey, you guys need to detour to X, Y, and Z as a favor for me, right? And so they're like, oh, we're on a tight schedule. I don't know if you've noticed, but we're on a tight schedule. And Hera's like, you can't really deny requests from gods now, can you? So you're going to detour and you're going to do this for me. Please and thank you. That is when the Hera hate starts. And again, I'm reading this as an adult with an adult brain because when I was younger, I was like, oh, Hera, oh my god, right? Again, I'm not going to call her names because that's just not what I'm going to do. But when I was younger, I was thinking, wow, she certainly is something, right? um, but as an adult, reading this with adult eyes, with an adult brain, I'm reading that scene and I'm like, flip, flip, flip. Okay, so where is she evil? Because I had remembered that that is when Annabeth started expressing her hate for Hera, like out of nowhere. And so I'm reading through, I'm flipping. It doesn't come. There is no reason for Annabeth to hate her. So I'm just like thinking, okay, maybe it's later on in the book, maybe I misread something, right? But anyway, they get to the ranch in Texas with the red cows, and Percy has to shoot an arrow through the 3 hearts of this rancher, and he's praying to Apollo, he's praying to Artemis, and he kills the guy, right? And which is surprising to him because he's like, oh my god, I've never been good at archery, like this is a surprise, whatever, right? So he's like, oh my god, I'm gonna make so many offerings to Apollo and Artemis for answering my prayer, blah blah blah. And then later on in the book, Hera shows up and she's like, that wasn't Apollo and Artemis, that was me. I helped you. And for some fucking reason, Percy's like, what? How dare you? Why would you do that? Right? And I'm just reading it, again, with adult eyes. I'm reading it, I'm like, fuck you mean? What do you mean? Like, why would you do that? What? And I guess it makes sense that he would be annoyed somewhat because she's the one that sent him on that detour, right? She's the one that gave them that quest. And so I can see how a teenager of Percy's age would be like, well, it's all her fault. But also, the reason why she sent them there is to find Nico, because that is where they found Nico, and that is, like, that's what he was looking for, right? This whole, like, yeah, sure, the prophecy, whatever. Oh my god, there's entrance to the labyrinth under Camp Half-Blood. Oh my god, this is the exit that Luke's men and Luke himself have been using. This is how he vanished. This is how they've been recruiting campers. This is where Chris Rodriguez came out of, right? So yeah, the main like reason why Percy's in the labyrinth is because it's the entrance is in Camp Half-Blood, and that is the entrance that they are using. Luke's men and Kronos, they're using that entrance to sneak into Camp Half-Blood, recruit campers, take them into Kronos's army. And also, that is also the entrance that Kronos' army is going to use to try and destroy Camp Half-Blood that same summer. So Percy, Annabeth, Grover, and Tyson need to use the labyrinth, need to navigate and learn how to navigate the labyrinth in an effort to try to defeat Kronos' army, right? So that is the main reason why Percy is there. The secondary reason why Percy is there is because he's been having a lot of dreams about Nico and about Daedalus and about Icarus, right? Daedalus, the creator of the labyrinth, Icarus' his son, Icarus who flew too close to the sun, right? He's been having all of these dreams. So a part of him is hoping to find Nico. He's like, in the back of his head, he's like, okay, but when can I find Nico? Like, yeah, we're saving camp, whatever. When can I find Nico? That is his, like, underlying, like, he's having dreams about this kid who Percy feels really guilty about. And he's like, when can I find him? Like, where and when can I find him? And that's what he's been so worried about. So Hera helps him find Nico. And she helps him find Nico by sending them to the ranch and by giving Percy a seemingly useless quest of cleaning out the stables. And, you know, the whole time he's doing it, he's so annoyed. But he finds Nico. And then she also helps him kill the ranch owner. the rancher. So to me, reading that, like, as an adult with an adult brain and adult eyes, I was like, okay, but you realize she helped you though, right? Like, she's the reason you're still alive. Like, she's the reason you're still with us, right? She's the reason you found Nico in the first place. So I did not understand that. And then, okay, also, I forgot to mention, the first time that Hera shows up in the labyrinth, and, she's talking to Percy and Annabeth, and um, gives them the makeover and the banquet and stuff. Annabeth makes a comment about how, because, like, Percy at first is like, oh my god, that was really nice of her. Like, wow, she gave us food. She gave us a whole banquet, and she, like, cleans us up and everything. That's really nice of her. And so then Annabeth is like, you shouldn't, something, something, you shouldn't expect nice things out of gods without them wanting something, 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 right? Whatever, whatever. And so Percy's like, okay. And, like, his inner monologue, right? The narrating part of him is like, I could tell that there was some tension between Annabeth and Hera, and I wanted to ask Annabeth about it, but then also she looked like she didn't want to talk about it, so I didn't ask her about it. And I was like, okay, that's weird. um, Whatever, I guess, right? I'm gonna take a sip of water. But that is the start of the nonsensical Hera hate. Because after that, the entire time after that, Annabeth is just like, I hate Hera. I hate her. I hate her so much. She's the worst. Oh my god, right? And I'm sitting there reading this book like, but why? Like, why do you hate her? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. And I think she tried to explain it, something about, like, sending cows her way or something. And she'll always find, like, cow poop on her doorstep or whatever. And I'm like, okay, but, like, why is she doing that? Like, am I allowed to ask that question? Cause, like, I feel like, per the own words of Percy, the narrator, that doesn't just happen without a reason, right? I thought there was a window behind me, but it's just this curtain. But anyway, per Percy's own words, like, that doesn't just happen. It's not just like the gods are like, hee, wouldn't it be funny if I just randomly sent cow poop to the doorstep of a random demigod that has nothing to do with me? Because, like, truly, Annabeth has nothing to do with Hera, right? And Hera, especially, is not like, she's not like Hermes, like god of mischief or whatever. She's, like, in the Battle of the Labyrinth, especially, she's shown to be very direct. She sends them to the ranch because Percy has been worried about Nico. They run into trouble. Hera saves Percy. Okay? And then they go on their merry way. So she's very, like, direct and to the point. She's like, okay, this is what I need you to do. And I'm going to help you find who you want to find. And in return, you have to do this small little favor for me. Oh, oopsie, I got you in trouble. Don't worry, let me help you. I'll sort it out. So when I was reading that, I was like, but, like, why would Hera, a in universe, very direct goddess, send cow poop to Annabeth randomly? You know what? As I'm saying that, there probably was a reason, and I just don't remember it. But, like, off the top of my head, I don't have the books with me. Like I said, I am out of my room. But yeah, I like. What was I saying? Um, Off the top of my head, from what I can remember, I just remember being like, this is so strange. Why is Hera sending cow poop to Annabeth? Like, what did Annabeth do to her, first of all, but also kind of out of character for Hera in the same book? Like, we're in the same book, not even the same universe, same book. One half of the book to the next. And all of a sudden she's done a 180? Where, like, in the first half, she's shown to be very, sensible, dare I say. And again, before you guys start talking about, like, no, but in the myths she was blah 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 blah, right? She wasn't sensible in the myths. I'm talking about Percy Jackson Hera, like in universe Hera. She's shown to be a very sensible, very direct goddess in the first half of the book. And then in the second half of the book, it's like she's sending cow poop to Annabeth for why? Like, what is the reason? Because again, like I said, first half of the book, it's like very clear. Okay, this is what I want you to do. This is how it's going to happen. This is what I'm going to help you do. Okay, and this is how I'm going to help you. Then in the second half of the book, it's like, yeah, she just randomly sends me cow poop. Huh? There's no rhyme or reason to it. What? I beg your pardon. What are you saying to me right now? Right? So that is the beginning of the Hera hate. And then in The Last Olympian, back to the scene that I was first thinking about, they're running into Mount Olympus, right? Kronos' army, Luke has gone into Mount Olympus and he's there by himself. Talia, Percy, and Annabeth are running into Mount Olympus, and they make some note about how, oh my god, remember when we went to Maine and, Titan's Curse, and we did the same thing, and it was just the three of us or whatever. And so they're running into Mount Olympus, and Talia is either at the very back or like in the middle or something, and she's running. Also, hello. She's running, and a statue of Hera falls on her, and she's cursing Hera. She's like, she always hated me. She always had it out for me. And again, I'm sitting there thinking, like, when did this happen? Like, I understand that Talia is a child of Zeus. I understand that. But in the books, beforehand, Hera didn't really have a problem with Talia. She had a problem with Annabeth, right? For some fucking reason. I don't know. And so I'm reading that scene and I'm like, why are you cursing her out, bro? Like, huh? What do you mean she's always had it out for you? This has never ever been explained in universe. The entire first book that we knew Talia, that was never explained that, oh yeah, the only reason why Zeus turned me into a pine tree is because Hera told him to. It was just like, no, Zeus, of his own volition, of his own free will, turned me into a pine tree. That was the original story. So imagine my surprise reading that and being like, what? That just doesn't make any sense to me. So then, also, you guys, I hope I'm not glitching because I'm seeing that some of the numbers glitch on my screen. So I hope everything is fine. And if so, welcome to my live stream. I'm just ranting about the Percy Jackson series per the title, okay? But anyway, so I'm reading that scene. I'm so confused because I'm like, when has it been explained before that Hera has it out for Talia? This is a new thing that is happening right before my eyes. And that is what kicks off, I'm assuming, the entire The Heroes of Olympus series. Where people are, well, the demigods themselves are being messed with by Hera. And I'm just like, okay, but why? Right? Like, the in-universe reasoning makes sense to me. Absolutely. That's not what I'm questioning. I'm not questioning, excuse me, I'm not questioning why in-universe Hera would do that. I'm questioning why Rick Riordan chose Hera, right? Because again, Rick Riordan sprung this Hera hate out of nowhere to us. He was just like, bah, everybody hates Hera. And I'm sitting there like, I don't. You haven't given me enough reason to hate her. Like, what the absolute fuck are you talking about? So, the Heroes of Olympus, continues. And Jason has been kidnapped by Hera. Percy has also been kidnapped by Hera. Annabeth gets a dream, or Rachel gets a prophecy or whatever from Hera, and is like, "Oh, Percy will be at this wilderness camp. You need to go find him." So Annabeth goes, expecting to find Percy, and instead she finds Jason, Piper, and Leo, who are Piper and Leo are unclaimed demigods. Jason is a claimed demigod, but seemingly unclaimed, at least to the knowledge of Annabeth and Camp Half-Blood. So, she gets angry. She's like, "Where's Percy? Where have you hidden him?" Leo, Piper, and Jason are like, "Who? What is a Percy?" Like, we just got attacked by a cloud. I have no idea what you're talking about. So then Annabeth looks up to the sky and she's like, "Curse you!" And again, adult mind, adult eyes, adult self, I'm reading that and I'm like, what are you even, like, okay, I must reiterate, I understand the in-universe reason of why Annabeth is mad at Hera. Okay, I understand that. However, as I'm reading it, I'm also seeing like Annabeth being like, "She's always had it out for me. She always does this, blah, blah, blah." And mind you, this is like, I remember Hera being pretty direct, according to the Battle of the Labyrinth, when this whole hate train started against her. She's pretty direct. So that's why I'm confused. Because I'm like, if she's usually direct, why is she dealing with riddles all of a sudden? Right? Because it's like, well, she's normally direct. She's normally like pretty, this is what you're going to do. This is what's going to happen. This is the outcome that you're going to get out of it. And then all of a sudden she's embarking on like a year-long journey of bringing the Greek and Roman camps together. And like, again, in universe, it makes sense why she's doing that. Because Zeus is embarrassed that Percy turned down the request for immortality, so he shut Olympus down, let Annabeth redesign Olympus, and then was like, "I'm gonna shut Olympus down." Just like out of nowhere. Claimed a bunch of demigods, claimed a bunch of gods, right? He was like, "Oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna do what this demigod told me to do for a while, and then out of nowhere, I'm gonna stop doing it." Which also doesn't really make sense. Like, either you do it or you don't, type of thing. That's the kind of character that Zeus has been in universe. It's like, he's either gonna do it or he's not gonna do it. He's not gonna be like, okay, I will do it. Actually, I will not, right? Like, what? And so in universe, Hera has to like sneak around and be like, "Okay, I know that Gaia is waking. Like, this is something that we can see. This is happening. It's here. It's not sooner or later, it is sooner. So I need the best of the best demigods, and I need to bring everyone together. and the best of the best demigods are both Greek and Roman. So she needs to bring the Greek and Roman camps together, all the while doing it under Zeus's nose and doing it with like sneaking behind his back, right? So it makes sense that she would send everyone dreams and be like, right? It makes sense that she would kidnap the best Roman demigod and the best Greek demigod and switch them and show each of the camps that at least one Roman and at least one Greek can be trusted within one Greek, one Roman camp. That makes sense. I am following that train of thought. What I'm not following is the sudden change, the sudden 180 that she did in the Battle of the Labyrinth, and why Rick Riordan did that. Like, because, like, it makes sense why he chose her, because she is, like, the goddess, like, she's the mother of the family, right? She's Zeus's wife, she's the one that oversees stuff like this, so it makes sense that it's her. What doesn't make sense is why he would treat her in the first 3 books, why he would treat her as like disposable. Like, yeah, sometimes I'll mention her, sometimes I won't, whatever. And then all of a sudden in the Battle of the Labyrinth, he's like, no, actually, she's gonna play a really important role in my next series. Right? And that to me gave me like a bit of an ick, because it continued this pattern of him not characterizing his female characters well until it was useful for him to characterize the female characters well, right? So think Aphrodite. Aphrodite was not mentioned in the first 2 books. She was mentioned in the 3rd book. First, like, okay, she was mentioned, duh, but she wasn't utilized as a goddess until the 3rd book, where she gives Percy this talk about how, like, oh, Annabeth and you will be so cute. It's so romantic that you're so worried about her disappearance, whatever, right? And she's I said in the previous live stream, I really like her portrayal in the Titan's Curse. I thought she was a really enjoyable character to read. And yeah, it was really fun reading that. But it was only like she was only used as a plot device, if that makes sense. Like, she was only used as a sort of, you guys remember, I don't know if you've ever watched, if some of you guys have watched or haven't watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, and when they're in Ember Island and the play goes on, and how they're watching basically a recap of the show, but it's made into a fun little entertaining thing. Aphrodite kind of gave off that vibe where it's like she's recapping kind of what has been going on in an entertaining way, but then she's also providing like a clue, kind of like RPG games or like, yeah, I don't think they're called RPG games, but the games where you go on an adventure and you run into an NPC and the NPC is like, okay, and now you must fetch me milk, right? She kind of reminded me of that. So it's like, even though I liked her characterization, and even though I liked the switch that the Aphrodite cabinet in general was making during the Titan's Curse, it was like, okay, but she was only here to serve as kind of an NPC, like in a quest, like, and now you must go here, right? Zoe, your companion, has suffered a lot of heartbreak. Like, she's a goddess, first and foremost. Why is she being used in this way? I don't understand. I don't get it. That's what I don't get. Why is she being used in that way? Oh, ooh, favorite character. Ares and Aphrodite. I'm sorry. I love their characterization. And you know why that's part of the reason why the Sea of Monsters I hate so much, because I just feel like Aries would not abuse his kids. Like, that was so out of nowhere for me. It might not have been out of nowhere for you guys, but to me, going from like the lightning thief Aries to he's abusing his kids because he's hot-headed, like, you understand hot-headed people don't have to abuse their kids, right? Yes, he is the god of war, I understand, but I still feel like, again, it's like jumping to conclusions on Rick Riordan's part, like, oh, he's a hot-headed god of war, so he's abusing his kids. What? I fucking beg your pardon. But anyway, so those are my two favorite characters. I really like their characterization outside of the Sea of Monsters. um, but yeah, I'm Aries and Aphrodite stan. And I feel like they were really done injustice, especially like if you read the mythologies, they're more than just goddess of love, god of war, which I talked about a little bit on my previous live stream, how Aphrodite used to be a goddess of war, and how she, Piper, her daughter, had a really good moment in the Blood of Olympus where she was like, love and war are like two sides of the same coin. That's why Aries and Aphrodite get along so well. Cut to Aphrodite fighting. Again, we just had Piper be like, love and war are two sides of the same coin. And then when Aphrodite is fighting, she's like, sprinkles, doves, kisses, and it's like, bro, what? Are you, are you for real right now? Are you being serious right now? She's fighting with doves after you just explained that her children are fear incarnate. They're the representation of fear. Her husband is a god of war, and love and war are two sides of the same coin, and she's fighting with doves. That makes no sense to me. But anyway, as I was saying, Aphrodite in that scene is just used as like a NPC villager, all right, where Percy goes up to her and is like, interact, and Aphrodite's like, welcome, traveler. Here is your next quest, right? Um, essentially she's being used as a chess piece, which I didn't like, uh, especially since her characterization changes so much depending on the context in which she is needed, which is ultimately my point, right? Is that a lot of the female characters that Rick Riordan writes are only written within the context of whatever scene they're needed in. So, for example, in the Titan's Curse, Aphrodite's all like, hee hee ha ha, oh my god, love is so cute, blah 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 blah. And then in The Lost Hero, she's like very wise, and she's talking to Piper, her daughter, again, and she's like, you feel this way because of this. Basically, she's being like a really good mom. And then cut to the Mark of Athena, she's again going back to hee hee, oh my god, love is so romantic. And then cut to the Blood of Olympus, I'm not going to lift a finger to fight, have some doves instead. What? Like, it's all just like it fluctuates so much. And again, like in universe, you can explain this away by being like, well, the gods have that they're split up into all these different pieces so that their presence can be every which way. And so sometimes you get a good piece of their persona, sometimes you get a really wacky piece of their persona, but it really only happens with female characters. And it's, again, it's not just the goddesses, it's female characters just like in general are used in that way. So Reina is another really good example, where when she's introduced, okay, technically she's introduced in the Sea of Monsters, but we did not know that, so that doesn't count. In the Son of Neptune, when she is properly introduced to us, so I got a comment. In your opinion, would the show be different if they were using the Roman versions of these gods versus the original Greek? Yes, but I am a hater of this whole Roman versus Greek dynamic that Rick Riordan used in the universe, right? It it I wish it would have gone down. I wish he would have written it differently, and I wish he would have written it from a perspective of colonization and a perspective of um like, not to throw shade at the Roman gods, right? But I wish it would have been written in the perspective of the Greek and Roman gods' personalities were stolen through colonization. So now they're being used interchangeably, but they're actually part of two different religions, right? They're part of two different mythologies. That's how I wish he would have gone. And I wish he would have explored more of that, like how colonization can steal a sense of yourself. I feel like that would have, maybe it would have been like ahead of its time type of thing, but I feel like I would have resonated with that more, and a lot of people all over the world would have resonated with that discussion and conversation more, versus him having to violently out Nico, which I did not. It did nothing to the story, and then it went nowhere. Which series did you like, the Roman one or the Greek? Greek, because I am partial to the Greek gods. But yeah, I feel like, it was a missed opportunity for him to be like, okay, so there's Greek gods and there's Roman gods, and they are separate entities. They are not the same entities. But through colonization, they started being used interchangeably, and thus their identities got a little bit confused, but they are two separate entities. That I feel like would have been very successful, especially nowadays when society is talking more about the effects of colonization and things that get stolen from you as you are colonized. Like, I have talked about this on my TikTok. I feel very disconnected from my ancestors because I don't know who my ancestors were. Like, Ancestry DNA tells me the region of where my ancestors came from, and like the areas that they moved to, but it doesn't tell me what tribe my ancestors were from. So I don't know if that tribe still exists. I don't know if it doesn't exist. I don't know what the religious practices of the tribe were. I don't know what beliefs they held. I don't know what cool things they made. I don't know anything about my ancestors because of colonization. Colonization has stolen that part from me, right? So I feel like this series would have been so much better if he had explored those kinds of topics, especially having an indigenous character such as Piper, having Piper help bridge that. Hold on, I got a text message from my brother. One moment, please. Okay, I'm back. So yeah, I feel like that would have been very successful. And now let me think about what I was saying before. Not that I don't like the questions, but I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, so Reyna, when she is properly introduced in the Son of Neptune, she's introduced as like Percy's potential lover. And it feels kind of clear to me that her only purpose being there is to make Percabeth fans worried so that they can continue reading. She feels like a motivator for people to keep reading the series, because people are like, okay, Percy recognizes that Raina has a crush on him. Will he act on it, or will he wait for Annabeth? And even though it's like pretty clear in the implied and even outright text that he's not going to go to Raina, in um the Lost Hero, at the end of the Lost Hero, Jason's like reminiscing about his past, and he mentions that, you know, he left someone behind, right? And then in a later book, I think House of Hades or Blood of Olympus or whatever, um Jason is like, yeah, I led Raina on. Like I didn't turn her down, and I knew she had a crush on me, and I knew I wasn't interested in dating her, but I also did not turn her down. So it's clear that for almost the entirety of the series, Raina is used as a bit of like a, ooh, will she seduce Percy? Will she seduce Jason and break up Piper and Jason, or Percy and Annabeth, who you guys love so much? And then all of a sudden, in the Blood of Olympus, or in the House of Hades, starting in the House of Hades, when they need somebody to transport the Athena Parthenos, she's used as like, guys, she's the hero all of a sudden, which I really liked, that she was the hero and not just like a, she's gonna steal the man of your favorite character, right? The man of the character that you most identify with, either Annabeth or Piper or whatever. Um, I really like that she was the hero for once. But that's another example of how female characters often in Rick Riordan's series are used as a sort of like placeholder for whatever emotion it is that he needs to convey. And so female characters will often change throughout the series to suit whatever narrative Rick Riordan is trying to weave. So it's very frustrating to me reading this as an adult. And like I said in my last live stream, I now am at a place where I feel really comfortable with my femininity. I feel really comfortable with being girly and being, you know, a woman, if that makes sense. Whereas when I was a child, I felt very ashamed of being girly. I felt very ashamed of the color pink. I felt very ashamed of showing any girly side of me. I wanted to be a tomboy, but I knew in my heart of hearts that I could never be a tomboy because I just liked being girly so much. But I hated being seen as girly. And Rick Riordan is part of the reason why I hated being seen as girly. Is because he very clearly favored characters like Piper over characters like Drew, over characters like Selena in the beginning, over characters like Aphrodite, who were in tune with their femininity, who liked being girly, who liked wearing makeup. At um Throughout his series, those characters who like wearing makeup, who like being girly, are shown as mean girls, as bullies, as shallow, as like they don't really know who they are. All they care about is checking out their reflection is perfect, checking out their makeup is perfect, checking out their hair is perfect. They don't really do anything else. They're like airheaded, right? Versus characters like Piper, Annabeth, Hazel, they don't wear makeup. They're not like the other girls. So reading that as a young girl really did a number on me. And it took me stopping reading the series, because I used to like reread the series, both series, over and over again. So it took me not reading the series and getting more in touch with things that I like to do to understand that I actually really like being girly and I like wearing makeup. And obviously, currently, I'm not wearing makeup, but that is something that I do like. It's something that I enjoy. It's something that I like doing. I like dressing up. I often do not have the energy to dress up, but I like doing it, which is a stark difference from when I was younger. And yeah, so Percy's mom is another character that really not changes, but only appears when the narrative needs to be pushed forward. So in The Lightning Thief, she obviously is introduced. to provide a sense of comfort for Percy and the reader by extension. And then she dies to push the narrative forward. Because if she hadn't died, Percy would have insisted on staying with her, and he would have probably never gone to Camp Half-Blood, or he would have run away from Camp Half-Blood and returned home. But he has no one to return home to because Sally died. And he's not going to return to Gabe because we've seen Gabe be absolutely horrible. So the only reason that she died is to make Percy stay at Camp Half-Blood. Hades is also seen like that as he is, but he's not really. And can you talk? Yes, I can talk about it. I can talk about it. I have so many thoughts about Hades. The fact, okay, first and foremost, we must emphasize that the fact that Hades' children were Nazis is crazy. Okay, insane. Off the bat, I read that and I was like, bro, what? And then, okay, so as I said in my previous live stream, I take notes. I said that and somebody thumbs down. So sorry. It's my opinion, my live stream, whatever. As I was writing notes, I wrote down that Rick Riordan described Hades as looking like any dictator out there. Mussolini, Hitler, he lists a whole bunch of dictators, right? And then he also makes Hades the most sensible of the bunch, because they're going in there being like, oh, Hades wants more death, he wants more carnage, he wants to expand his kingdom or whatever. And then they get there and Hades is like, absolutely not. Who told you that? Having more death and carnage would actually be a disaster for me. It would not make me richer. What are you saying? Right? And he says some really sensible things, but he only says the sensible things after he is described as a dictator, as looking like a dictator, as his presence being like a dictator. And so I was sitting there reading that like, what did you just say to me? Like, I need you to like rewind and read that again and tell me what you think I should have gotten from that. Because what I'm getting from that is that you think that dictators are sensible. Obviously, like, not to that extreme, but that's what I was like, this is what this is implying. Is you're describing Hades as a dictator. You've made him the villain of the story. You're going to continue to make him the villain of the story. In the same book, I'm pretty sure that's when the whole Hades or Sea of Monsters, maybe, or maybe the Titan's Curse, within the same series, you're describing Hades as a dictator while also adding on the context that his children were the Nazis, that his children were the Axis powers, and Zeus and Poseidon's children were the allied powers. Okay? Good guys, Zeus and Poseidon. Bad guys, Hades. So within the same series, you're describing that. And that is what led to the pact that Hades, Zeus, and Poseidon would no longer have children, because their children led to the events of World War II, because Hades' children were Nazis. Okay, so within the same series, you're telling me that, while also making Hades the most reasonable one between Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. Because we've seen Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades in the book, right? And Zeus and Poseidon are arguing over this lightning bolt, and Percy is shown to be very exasperated with the whole situation. He's like, why would my dad do this? Like, why would he interact with this? Why can't he just, like, not, right? He's shown to be very exasperated. But then when he meets Hades, he's like, wait, Hades is not as bad as I thought he was. And it's like, okay, you've just described him as a dictator. And later on in the series, you're going to tell us, yeah, by the way, his children were the Axis powers of World War II. His children started World War II. So that's the one aspect. And then to get to your comment, the second aspect is that in The Last Olympian, he's completely different. Okay? The Lightning Thief, he's sensible. He seems like the best out of the three. That is until we meet Poseidon, at least. But he's made out to be like the best out of the three, right? Or at least one of the best out of the three. Excuse me. And then in The Last Olympian, suddenly he's kidnapping Percy. I thought he was sensible. Like, I thought he had a good head on his shoulders. I thought you were impressed by his reasoning. Now all of a sudden he's kidnapping children because he wants his own child to again be part of the war that cost him his reputation on Olympus. And that cost him his ability to have kids. It does not make a lick of sense to me, personally, if you were to ask me. But yeah, you're right. He is, and I don't know why it is. Like, I couldn't tell you. But yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy to read. And I, thinking about that arc now and how that transpired, it's similar to how the female characters are treated. And really, if you think about it, the only female characters that have like a strong characterization are the ones that are not girly. Now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, I know we were just talking about Hades, but now that I am thinking about it, I'm realizing Piper, Annabeth, and Clarice are the ones whose characters stay pretty much the same over both series. Whereas Selena starts out being ditzy, starts out being just interested in her makeup and her hair. During Capture the Flag, she's just staring at her reflection. She's not doing anything, she's not moving a muscle, whatever. And then all of a sudden in uh the Titan's Curse, when the Hunters of Artemis come into the camp and argue with the entire camp, the Aphrodite cabin and Selena change and are shown to be very willing to do the whole capture the flag thing. And then at the end of the series, Selena dies a hero because she goes into battle, which is, per the own words of the series, something that should have never happened. It's something like mind blowing. Oh my god, Aphrodite child joins battle? What? Right? Because in the same book, in The Last Olympian, the rest of the Aphrodite cabin, they're there, but Percy's like, guys, even the Aphrodite cabin is here. Isn't that crazy? Of course, they're all checking their reflections and making jokes about me and Annabeth, but they're here, right? And so it's like the whole Aphrodite cabin is like ditzy, doesn't really do much, except for Selena when it was necessary to. No, it does not make sense that she was a spy. I was really angry with. So when I first read it as a child, I was reading it and I was like, oh my god, wow, Selena, how could you be the spy? Right? But then when I read it as an adult, I was like, what? How could you be the spy? And like the whole time that Charles was on the boat, I just kept thinking, like, how could Selena not be like, hey, can you not go on the boat? Actually, like, I know it's a quest. I know that you're supposed to go on this boat with Percy, but I really need you to not go on the boat. I can't tell you why. I just need you to listen to me and do not go on the boat. And if you can, maybe also get Percy to not go on the boat as well, right? Or at least do not get separated. Like, be really, really careful. I don't want you to die. like, especially like after he dies, after Charlie dies, how she's like, oh my god, my boyfriend died, right? And she's shown to be a mess, and she's sobbing or whatever. And of course, it's not just because she lost her boyfriend; it's because she had like she was indirectly part of the reason why her boyfriend died. So she feels really guilty. So as she kept crying, as she kept like sobbing and being a mess or whatever, I kept thinking like, why wouldn't you warn him? Like, I don't mean to victim blame, right? But you don't need to tell the whole camp that you're the spy. You don't need to tell, right? You don't need to risk your reputation against the whole camp. You just have to tell your boyfriend, by the way, I know something you don't. And I'm going to tell you, but you have to promise me not to tell anybody else, right? Or you could even be like, Charlie, they made me. They forced me into being a spy. Please don't go on the boat, right? But she didn't. So it's like, okay, yeah, it doesn't, for sure, it does not make sense that she's a spy, but it also doesn't make sense how she executes her spy role. Because, like, she says, like, after I started dating Charlie and after I realized that Luke was a monster, I was really scared. And I felt really, really scared of Luke. I thought he was going to do something to me. So, to me, that should have been the point in which, okay, you have to say something now. Because now you've killed the only black character. Guys, this is what happens with people of color in books. When they're written as characters, they die. Um, so there's that. Yeah, I also was very frustrated with Rick Riordan using that trope. And again, it's not just the female characters that are used in this way. It's also the characters of color. Charles Beckendorf. He was really like a throwaway mention at one point. Percy like was like, oh yeah, and then I saw Charles Beckendorf in the workshop or whatever. And then in the next book, all of a sudden he's like this guy that everybody likes. And we had already been introduced to Selena. So really what happened was Charles was kind of like a throwaway uh mention, but Selena was the reason why Charles came into the picture because Percy mentions, oh yeah, by the way, Selena is now dating Charles. So Selena and Charles are a thing. And that's the only reason why he really comes into the picture, and he's described as this sort of like guy that everybody likes. He's very likable, he's very helpful, he loves doing things for people, he, you know, etc., etc. He's a really good character, and he's shown to be really useful. Um, Pause. Hold on. I'm gonna mute myself. My mom is calling me. Hi. Sorry, I had to talk to my dad. Okay. Where were we? Okay, so Charles. Charles is black, okay? Again, he is only introduced as like a throwaway kind of mention. Like, I saw Charles back in the door from the His Fastest cabin working over there in the workshop. And then in the next book, it's like, oh, thank you, hi. I'm picking right where I left off because I have so many thoughts. In the next book, he's like, guys, by the way, Charles and Selena are dating, and they're like the most popular cabin people, most popular members at Camp Half Blood. And so it's really exciting, like exciting news. But it's like we only ever knew Selena. Like we only ever knew Selena as being popular. Who the fork is Charles? Right? So Charles really only purpose is to forward Selena's story. And Selena's purpose is only to forward the story of Kronos invading Camp Half Blood. Or I guess invading New York, right? Invading both Camp Half Blood and New York. Because, Battle of the Labyrinth also. That's why Charles is mentioned in Battle of the Labyrinth, is because Selena, his girlfriend's whole purpose is to forward Kronos attacking Camp Half Blood in the Battle of the Labyrinth, and then Kronos attacking New York in The Last Olympian. So now we have a female character and a black character whose only purpose are to forward the plot. Forward. Do you see what I mean? And so it's like the main characters do things, of course, and the background characters do things, but the background characters only do things to serve the main characters. I love the Battle of the Labyrinth. Yes, I love it so much. In the last live stream, I mentioned my ranking, so it would go The Titan's Curse, because I love The Titan's Curse so much, because that's the first and pretty much only time that we see Ares and Aphrodite interacting, and it is a treat. It is so fun. It's why I said that Ares and Aphrodite are my favorite characters, because their interactions together are so fun. So it's The Titan's Curse, and then below that it's The Last Olympian, and then The Battle of the Labyrinth, and then The Lightning Thief, and then way below, like Lightning Thief here, way down here, The Sea of Monsters. The Sea of Monsters is just ass, okay? And then if you were to ask me my rating for the Heroes of Olympus, it would go The Mark of Athena, The Son of Neptune, The House of Hades, The Lost Hero, and then way down here, the other one, The Blood of Olympus. I couldn't even remember. The blood of Olympus is so ass. I rest my case. I talked about why I hate The Blood of Olympus in my previous live stream. I got up and I forgot to even check if, in fact, I did have a gap in my door. It's not a gap. I have decided, for my own sanity, I have decided that it is not a gap. I'm gonna pick up some water. BRB. Got the water. But in short, the Blood of Olympus. Okay, I'm gonna start with the Sea of Monsters. I hate the Sea of Monsters because of the whole Confederate soldiers thing, Ares being an abusive parent when it's like it came out of nowhere. Okay, came out of nowhere to me. To you guys, maybe not. Maybe to you guys, it makes sense that the god of war, like the angry, restless god of war, abuses his kids. But to me, that was a jump. That was a leap. That should not have happened. So that's why I don't like. And then also, the Sea of Monsters is just. It generally feels like a filler book. Like, I get that. Okay, if you guys have seen The Office, it kind of feels like the season 1 of The Office. Because season 1 of The Office is like, it's trying to be something that it is not. It's because it copies directly off of the British UK, like the UK Office. I'm talking about the US Office. So the first season of the US Office feels like it is borrowing from, not feels like, it is borrowing from the UK Office, and thus does not have a sense of identity. Whereas season 2, it's like it has a sense of identity. So to me, the Sea of Monsters feels like season 1. The Lightning Thief feels like season 2. The Lightning Thief, we have established who we are. Very first book, that's really, really good. And then in the second book, it feels like we're borrowing elements from the first book. And it presumes that the reader has read the first book, which it should, but then it also presumes that the reader has not read the first book. So it's this sort of like whole thing where it's like, yeah, last summer I did this. Remember, like, this and this happened. And so me as a reader, I'm like, yes, I do remember. I just barely finished reading that book yesterday. So yes, I do remember what happened, right? Which I guess makes sense for a series, right? Because it's like recap, but in that case, I feel like the recap should have been in the first part of the book. Like, mention all the things that happened last summer in the first part of the book, and then so that way we can get on with the rest of the book without you having to mention anything that happened last summer. But it continues mentioning things that happened last summer throughout the entire book. So it really does feel like, okay, The Lightning Thief feels like the UK Office. The Sea of Monsters feels like the US season 1 Office. And then, the rest is its own thing, and it really, Rick Riordan found his groove, his purpose for telling the story. The reason why I do not like The Blood of Olympus, I talked about it in depth in my previous live stream, but the reason why I don't like it is because it really, really fell off. Like, it really, fell off. Yeah, massively, insanely so, to the point where I was like, get this book out of my face. But I had to finish it because I have to finish it. Like, I'm not someone who's like, whatever, I'm just not gonna finish the book, especially if I've read it once before. I need to see the pieces that I remember in my head coming together. So I finished it, much to my displeasure, and it emphasized a lot of the problems that I did not know were there. I didn't know that the series had the problems that were present in The Blood of Olympus until The Blood of Olympus. And part of that problem is, first and foremost, the biggest reason, and the reason why I rank The Blood of Olympus so low, is because you can tell throughout the series, but especially during The Blood of Olympus, that Rick Riordan is over it. He does not want to be writing for the Percy Jackson universe anymore. Like, he's over it. It feels like contractually obligated books, but The Blood of Olympus feels even more, especially contractually obligated. To the point where he's repeating things over and over with different characters. And I talked about this in the previous live stream, but every character will have like a battle scene, right? And the battle scene for every character, mind you, different characters, 5 different characters. Every battle scene for the 5 different characters will be the exact same thing. Problem arises. Surprising solution comes along the way. They go on their merry way. And it happened a lot, so much, the entire book. So that's the first and foremost reason why I massively dislike the Blood of Olympus, and why I just wanted to put it down. Other factors that kept repeating were also the jokes. The jokes were like, okay, I get it. Okay, I get it. I get the joke. I got it the first time. You do not need to repeat it 100 more times. Um, Also, like the voice, the dialogue for every character was the exact same. This is what I mean by it really feels like a contractually obligated book, and it you can tell it felt like Rick Riordan was like, get this book out of my face, get this series out of my face, get these characters out of my face, because there were so many loose ends that he it felt like he just grabbed them, he just like tied them in a knot, and he was like, okay, done. Right. um like there was the whole thing with Frank's um fire stick wood, right? Where the entire series he's building it up to be this like massive thing of like, it's so dangerous, he's running a risk of even asking somebody else to carry it for him. Like, why should he trust Hazel so much? But he does. He trusts Hazel to carry it for her, and he's no longer afraid of dying prematurely. Like, he's still afraid, obviously, but he's no longer as afraid of dying prematurely, whatever. And then in the Blood of Olympus, Leo is like, I don't have a bag near me, but Leo is like, here's a fireproof bag for your stick. And Frank gains powers, gets a growth spurt, which I also found a little bit unnecessary, to say the least. The fact that he got a growth spurt, I was like, this isn't like, why would he need a growth spurt? I think he was doing just fine without the growth spurt and without bulking up after Ares granted him powers, or Mars granting powers. um that's another issue actually that I had with the whole series, is that in real life Romans and Greeks had different pantheons that they answered to. Okay? In our real world with you and I, the Roman gods and the Greek gods were separate. And I already talked about this. For those of you that have been here over the entire live stream, I already talked about this. But for those of you who are new, that is also the biggest problem that I had with the entire series, is that I wish Rick Riordan would not have compiled the two pantheons, because the two pantheons are completely different. And there were times, like for example, Bologna, I think that's how you pronounce her name, again, correct me if I'm wrong. She is a completely Roman goddess. In the last Olympian, there was also a Roman goddess that was mentioned, and she was a statue, and so Percy came across her, and he was like, what goddess are you supposed to be? And she's like, goddess blah blah blah. I don't remember her name, but she says her name, and Percy's like, who? And the goddess is like, I'm a Roman goddess, fuck you for not knowing, right? Which was, foreshadowing for the whole Greek versus Roman thing. But that was my biggest issue, is that I wish the pantheons would have been kept separately, and it would have been a case of Hera and Juno come together and are like, our combined enemy is rising and is going to destroy both of our pantheons, right? Instead of just Hera being like, I am Hera and Juno. I would have preferred them to be separate. I would have preferred Ares and Mars to be separate. I would have preferred Aphrodite and Venus to be separate. Although Venus never made an appearance, which was also unfortunate. Yeah, I would have preferred them to be separate. Oh, thank you so much. Have a good night. Bye. Yeah, like I said, I have read these books over and over and over and over and over and over again, to the point where it caused me harm. So, yeah. But thank you for saying that I talk well about them. Who is this? I have. Damn it. this is so frustrating. I've used a lot of data, which is unfortunate. But I don't want to sign up to the internet at the motel, so that's why I'm using. But I guess whatever. I will deal with that later. God, what was I saying? Yeah, so that is part of the reason why I know the books so well is because they cause me harm. Yeah, the tropes are harmful, you guys. The harmful tropes are harmful because somebody that should theoretically fit the trope is reading that and is like, hey, I fit. I'm gonna change to public Wi-Fi. I'm not gonna change to public Wi-Fi. Actually, I have decided. um, let's see, what was I saying? So yeah, I would have preferred the pantheons to be kept separate, and I just think it would have been such an interesting dynamic, not just to see Ares and Mars, two separate gods, interacting and finding common ground, right? And being like, hey, we're both the gods of war in our respective pantheons, versus having them shout at Frank in his head, a ghost. Oh my god, what was that? That's scary. Wait. No, okay, whatever. Uh I would I would have preferred Mars and Aries to like meet and be like, oh my god, we have so much in common, but also I'm gonna keep you at arm's length. Versus them like both yelling at Frank and being like, no, you have to do this. No, I'm your real father. You have to do this. Destroy the Greeks. No, destroy the Romans, right? I did not need that. I did not need that. It was unnecessary. And it really distracted from the plot. And that's also another thing that I'm like, but why did this need to happen? It doesn't make any sense. I hate that it happened. You know what? After this, I'm gonna buy a VPN so that I can get on the Wi-Fi here because I don't want my data to end. But speaking of my data ending, I'm gonna go ahead and go, you guys, because I don't want my data to end. But thank you for hanging out with me actually this little rant session. Fear not. I do have more to talk about, but I'm gonna save it for a video essay. Otherwise, the video essay will be spoiled. But anyway, bye. Thank you for hanging out with me. I will see you guys in podcast episodes. Bye.